Hello, everybody. It is Renee, and I am with Reformation Body Solutions in Los Gatos, California. And today I am super lucky to have a practitioner that is local to me. I was so lucky to run across Dr. Vikki as I was doing a search for our Refresh Wellness Retreat, and she came out and talked to us about the thyroid and just so many different things. And I was so impressed, and I wanted to share her with all of you. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that, you can scroll back to about maybe like a week and a half ago, and we were talking online. If you are online, tell us where you're from. Tell us if you have questions. Today, our subject's going to be about the adrenals. So if you have questions on that, just type them in, and we're going to answer all of those today. So welcome, Dr. Vikki. Tell us about your clinic and a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, Renee. I really appreciate it. My clinic is Root Cause Medical Clinic, and it's here in Saratoga, right near you in Los Gatos. We've been in practice for close to 25 years, and it's a multidisciplinary clinic, meaning we have internal medicine, functional nutrition, registered dietitian. We also have physical medicine in the form of chiropractic and physical therapy. So we all work together as a team, all about getting to the underlying root cause of why your body's giving you a symptom, instead of just only using medication sort of as a temporary mask, but really resolving things at their root. So that is our specialty.
That's, and I went over there, and you have such a beautiful clinic. It's just light and airy and open. And so if you guys are in the Bay Area, make an appointment and see Dr. Vikki for whatever it is you need to see her about. So we can go into a little bit of that before we sign off. But so Dr. Vikki, tell us a little bit about your story. It was very inspiring.
Yeah, I grew up with a mom that was very ill pretty much all the time. And by the time I hit puberty, I was having headaches. I had migraines 2 to 3 times a month. And when I wasn't having a migraine, I called it my regular headache, because I literally always had a headache. It was just the distinction of whether it was a migraine or not. I was exhausted. My blood sugar was so unstable, I would pass out, just on the floor, pass out. And I had a lot of pain. I had a lot of menstrual related problems, PMS, terrible cramps. And I was just basically a mess. And I was 16, 17 years old. My mom brought me to my pediatrician. He knew the family very well. And he said, well, you're just like your mother, what do you expect? And that was true. I was her daughter, and we had the exact same symptoms. And so clearly genetics was at play, but it was pretty depressing at that young age to think, wow, this is the rest of my life, because I'd watched my mother my entire life be very, very ill. So I didn't like that as the forecast of my future. And I had already wanted to become a clinician. Initially, I wanted to become a pediatrician. And I kind of changed at that point. I was like, no, I really want to understand how these bodies work better. My mother, fortunately, did terribly with drugs. So she said, don't bother with the birth control pill. Don't bother with this. Don't bother with that. She had just terrible reactions to pretty much everything, which in a way was a blessing, because I got to figure out, okay, what could you do more naturally? So it was a concept of getting to the root cause, and we now call it functional medicine. It didn't exist back then, certainly. So I had to become a clinician, and by a very circuitous route, fixed myself, and then worked with her. And now, of course, it's so streamlined, having been doing this for 2 decades. But I never had another migraine again. I never passed out from low blood sugar again. And by the time I got a hold of my mom, she was in her late 60s. She was more than 40 years older than me. And the fact that I resolved her problems, and she said her 70s and 80s were her best decades, was just very inspirational for me as a young doctor, because I knew how terrible her health history was. And the fact that she could literally enjoy her 70s and 80s, call them her best decades be truly healthy with how horrific a younger, years had been all the way up to her 60s, was I just realized, wow, these bodies are so tough and they're so able to repair when you do the right thing. And it really doesn't matter their age. So it was an inspiration for me, honestly. And I've taken that into my practice. And I love working with women. And I think it's because I did suffer so much as a woman. And I think there's a lot of things that women are not catered to well enough. It's like, oh, she has PMS, or oh, she's menopausal, and it's, kind of foisted off on us as just, oh, the girl thing, and we put up with way too much. We really, really do, and we don't have to. So I'm probably jumping ahead on all your questions, but
No, I love it because, you know what, I think the thing, and I was telling Dr. Vikki this earlier, is last year my theme was motivation, and really
as I grab my little dog who's barking. Okay.
this year, oh, how cute of you. This year, my theme really is let's heal ourselves, and let's really understand that we do not, we don't have to live like the previous generations. We don't have to go through menopause in the same way. We can actually heal ourselves and understand what's going on in ourselves. And just because you're so tired, you're exhausted from being exhausted, we can fix that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Yeah. I want to say hi to a couple of people. Stephen Healy says he's wishing us a great show. And Renee Waterman, hey Renee, she's a great client, or she's a great follower. And Roxanne says, hi Dee, this is not Dee, this is Dr. Vikki. Dee was on our last show. And here is Dee. She says, hello, beautiful. You met her at the other event, and actually she came by your office and talked with you. All right, so let's talk about, we're going to talk about the adrenals today. So tell us what are the adrenals, and why are they just ignored all the time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So these are little walnut-sized glands that sit on top of your kidneys. So you have two of them. They're called the stress gland because they allow you to deal with stress well. They do a lot of different things, which we'll get into, but they are ignored because they disease very infrequently. And we live in a very disease-oriented society. It's all about, now if I asked you if you had a thyroid, everyone would know they had a thyroid. Yet the adrenal glands are sort of the boss of the thyroid, if you will. They're the senior gland to the thyroid. Yet a lot of people don't know they have them. And it's really simply because they very rarely disease. When they do, it's extremely serious, but they rarely disease. So they're not looked at. It's not something that's on a doctor's radar of something to look for as a problem, because they're thinking disease, they're not thinking malfunction. And that really is the key, is realizing that just because something is not diseased doesn't mean that it's working optimally. There's a huge chasm there between disease and optimal. And a lot of times you fall into that malfunction, and you're not making enough adrenaline, so you have fatigue. And because of stress, you're not making enough sex hormones, which can not only just affect fertility, but it can affect mood. So PMS and brain fog and trouble concentrating and memory issues and irritability, depression, anxiety. It's a very long list associated with not enough sex hormones. They affect allergies, they affect inflammation, they affect your joints. Some people feel very achy and sore, and they go, I didn't do anything, why am I just sore? And so they affect a lot of different parts of the body, yet they themselves are ignored. So they're at the root, but they're ignored because they're not diseased. So that, in a nutshell, explains it.
Yeah. So basically, unless it's broken or physically broken, the doctor doesn't know what to do with it. So that's why we have integrative and functional medicine practitioners now. And again, just like Dr. Vikki said, this is a fairly new term in the last, 5 to 7 years? Is that about right?
Yeah. For people to be more aware of it, absolutely. And now people are looking for functional medicine because they fall into one of two categories. One, they already have a problem like thyroid disease, or they have diabetes, or they have heart disease, and all they're being given is the drug, and then more and more of the drugs when one is not working as well. And they want to know, is there an alternative to this? Because I'm not feeling well. These drugs have side effects. Or they're on the other end of the spectrum of a laundry list of symptoms, not feeling well, but nobody can put a name on what they've got. Like they don't fall into any disease category. So you're told you're fine because you don't have a disease, but you don't feel fine. And so it's hard because you're living life feeling these issues, but also then you think, well, the tests can't find anything, so maybe I am making it up. Maybe I'm asking for too much. I have people come in their, early 40s and say, is it asking too much to sleep through the night and have some decent energy and have my brain work? And it's like, no, that's not asking for too much. But they've been led to believe it is. And that's really annoys me.
Yeah. You're traditional. That's where we have to really search out practitioners. And if you go to a practitioner and you're still not feeling like you're hearing the right thing, go to another one. Because,
Exactly.
I know that I have research. I've had my own stuff, and I've had to research and go to different practitioners. And sometimes you go to a practitioner for a while, and then maybe you need the next level of practitioner, and that's okay. And there's lots of amazing, great people out there. Okay, so let's talk about how the adrenal glands get affected by your nutrition and diet, and how they affect the way that we gain weight.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the adrenal glands, that making of adrenaline is one of their major things that they do. So they really need that constant flow of blood sugar, if you will, coming into them stably for them to feel like I can do everything that I need to do. And it's a long list of things that they do. And so if somebody's blood sugar is unstable, now my story was the height of instability. It got so crazy low that I would pass out. Most people aren't that bad, but that, feeling a little out of it, or headachy, or really tired, or jittery, or, people super hungry, cravings. And cravings is a big one, by the way. So you have those cravings, and that's the adrenal glands way of saying, I want something fast that will go into that bloodstream quickly because I'm not getting enough stable fuel. So a key problem here is eating. You might be eating decent food, but if it's not turning into the right fuel, then your blood sugar isn't stable. I mean, as a kid, I was eating well, but why did my blood sugar keep dropping so dramatically? It was because my body couldn't turn that food into stable fuel. Now, one thing that's super common is what's called food sensitivities, where you're eating something and it's a decent food like wheat, as an example, except my body hated it, and it's the most common food sensitivity. So it's coming in, and your body says, great, there's a toxin. What am I supposed to do with that? So it's the farthest thing from fuel that you could want, right? And so it's putting more stress on your body versus less. So diagnosing these food sensitivities is really, really key, because you need that stable blood sugar. Now, the adrenal glands are all about, once again, getting you through the day. So if blood sugar isn't stable, and or there's a lot of stress, they go into a very annoying thing when you're trying to lose weight, which is what I call the hold mode. It's like, okay, guys, burn nothing. And there's not the best fuel coming in. There's a lot of stress, whether the stress is coming from the outside world or internally, because you're dealing with imbalances and diabetes and heart disease or what have you, right? So you've got, the body doesn't really distinguish, interestingly enough, between internal stress and stress from the outside world. It's just another brick on its shoulders that it has to deal with. So when those stress levels are too high, either internal, external, or both, those adrenal glands just go into hold mode and they won't burn. And there you can be at the gym 2 hours a day and hardly eating, and you won't lose weight because they're in the survival hold mode. Does that make sense the way I'm describing it?
It totally does. And it's interesting because I have a couple of clients who, you know, I know they're eating the right amount of calories. I know that they're, you know, they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're nutritionally in a good place. We've gotten the sugar and the, you know, the refined carbohydrates out of their diet, and they're still like hungry 24 hours a day.
Right.
That's an adrenal response, right?
Yeah. So when you're hungry so much, as you said, the right food is coming in, but their body's not able to, it's not getting to their cells. And that's what I have to figure out, you know, and that's not hard for me, but it's really hard when you're not a functional medicine doctor, because it's all about, well, what are you eating? What are you eating? It's like, oh, you're eating well, that's just the way you are. And it's like, no, it's going in the mouth, but it's not being delivered to the cells, and or there's more internal stress. So something in the gut, you know, you have a hidden infection, the liver is overburdened, you have inflammation in the body, and all that energy is being used to try to handle that inflammation. And once again, the body's so busy doing that, it's like, I need more, I need more, I need more, even though calorie-wise it's getting enough, it's just gobbling it up, but still not burning a pound, you know? Did that make sense okay? Because there's a lot going on there.
I totally know what you're talking about. And you know what, and for me, because I am not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I just, you know, I know from experience in seeing hundreds and hundreds of clients, when I really need someone to go to see someone like yourself. And it's so,
Right.
it's so hard for me because I'm like, you know, here's the business card. Here, you really need to do this. And to them, it's like, well, that I don't understand. Like, why would that keep me hungry? I'm just not eating enough food, or I'm just, you know, this or that.
Right.
And so yes, definitely frustrating.
It's not normal. You know, it's not normal to be eating yet hungry. Yeah. And it's common, but it's not normal. You know?
So is there an age group at which this happens more than others?
That's a really good question. I see it in all ages. I used to see it more in women that were sort of hormones slowing down, you know, mid 40s, 50s, 60s. But now I'm seeing it in younger women. We talked about this a little bit when I presented there, but it has to do with the fact that these outside hormones, the hormones that are coming in from dairy products and meats, and they're estrogen-like, and also chemicals they mimic estrogen. So as you are exposed to the chemicals, or you're eating these animal foods, then what happens is your body goes, well, there's estrogen, I don't need to make any. And it down regulates your own estrogen because of what's coming in from the outside. Now, estrogen in women, testosterone in men, these are anabolic steroids. They build, you know, they burn calories, they build muscle. That's what, you know, keeps you young and virile and, you know, fertile and all of that. Or at least great libido. When fertile is, you're done, which is okay, but you're still deserve a great libido. So when those are functioning and at a good level, that's what you enjoy. But we're seeing those dips even in our young women because of what's happening in our environment and in our food. So not something we used to see, but in the past 7 years, I've been kind of horrified at how much I've been seeing it.
So, and is that where PCOS is really coming to play in younger gals in their 20s and 30s?
Yeah, exactly. So polycystic ovarian syndrome, where you have irregular periods, maybe no periods. You're getting a lot of central obesity, in the abdomen, hair growth, cystic ovaries. Sometimes you got cysts on the ovaries, sometimes you don't. But very irregular periods, very moody and irritable, and it's not fun, needless to say. But the source is, you can really normalize it, whether it's in the family tree or not. It really is environmental and diet.
Yeah. So and this is where it comes to play in really, really, working with a practitioner that can help you to clean up your nutrition and change a lot of things. And really it's that simple. And it probably doesn't feel like it when you're in that moment, when it's happening to you, but it's really as simple as really just changing out a lot of your foods and the kinds of foods that you eat and the choices that you make. And of course, organic and grass-fed and all of those good things. And that's like a whole subject unto itself.
Yeah, we could definitely spend time on that.
Yeah. So let's talk about, how the adrenals can affect the development of degenerative diseases.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the adrenal glands do so many things and vastly different things. But one of the things they do is make natural anti-inflammatories. So not the drug anti-inflammatory, but the natural anti-inflammatories. And it's that balance of inflammation is a normal, natural thing that your immune system does, and it's doing so to kill bacteria, kill cancer cells, deal with toxins. So you want a very robust, strong immune system. It's like, get that bad guy and take it out, So you want it to be very aggressive and strong. But when it's done that practice and it's done that attack, then you want it to chill out, basically. So inflammation flares up and then it has to go out. And the problem is that with our diet and lifestyle and stressors, etc., we tend to be too pro-inflammatory. Now, the adrenal glands will mellow that out, but only if they're functioning properly. So if they've been taxed by, once again, internal, external stress, poor diet, a lot of chemicals coming its way, then you don't have that anti-inflammation coming in, and you tend to be too pro-inflammatory. And inflammation in that chronic sense is at the root of all degenerative disease, not just one, but your heart disease, diabetes, cancer, autoimmune disease. The major things that we're dying from in this country are degenerative diseases driven by inflammation. So getting those adrenal glands back healthy and under control can really take down that inflammation. And to know if you're not dealing with inflammation as well, those are the women who, maybe you exercise and you feel good in the moment, you're getting some endorphins, but either later in the day or the next day, you feel like a truck ran over you, and you have a longer recoup period than you should have, or you do a little extra and you really kind of crash after that. I had a couple of busy days, and then, I really, you don't rebound as well. All of that is signs of being pro-inflammatory.
That's me, right there. Unfortunately, I've really had to learn to, about 5 years ago, I had a really bad bout with leaky gut, and then I ended up with mercury toxicity because I had a high fish diet, and I've spent the last 5 years fixing myself, and I'm still not fixed. And so understanding that it's not a quick fix, and let's talk for a minute about leaky gut and that being, kind of the center. Tell us a little bit of how that comes to play and starts and then goes from there.
It's very interesting. In functional medicine, we've been talking about leaky gut for, at least 15 years, if not more. And traditional medicine was no such thing. What a crazy idea. And now it's like, oh yeah, there's leaky, there's leaky gut. But basically it has to do with the fact that we don't think of this, but your digestive tract is kind of outside the body, meaning food comes in, and sometimes with food comes some little bacteria or little parasites, and they're microscopic. But what happens is 70 to 80% of your immune system that we were just talking about is housed in your gut. And that's because it's very, it needs to be there to handle any of these little bad guys that come in and make sure that they're just flushed out when you go to the restroom, and they're not let into the body. So it's a concept of, because your gut's not hanging on the outside of you, but it does allow the passage of digested food to then enter the body. So we think of it as kind of being outside the body, and then it allows the passage of good nutrients, you see, but not toxins, not mercury, not parasites. Those would be with a really robust immune system saying, no, you're out of here, and excrete it. So that's why the gut is called the second brain, because it's very brilliant in its ability to literally, the gates open and say, oh, healthy food, you may join the body, and then parasite, nah, you're out of there, you see. So if that opening and closing of the gates is being done properly, you don't have these problems. But that permeability or that leaky gut is because the immune system has gotten compromised. It's interesting to think that the surface area of your small intestine is the size of a tennis court. You look down and, first of all, you go, I got 23 feet of small intestine. You look down and you go, where am I putting that? Let alone that it's all very tightly folded. And if you spread it out, it's the size of a tennis court. So we're talking about a lot of square footage and these little tiny microscopic openings that are allowing, the passage of good and not allowing the passage of bad. But drugs and toxins and GMOs and food sensitivities, and it's a long list of things that have created this propensity that we have for the leaky gut. And that unfortunately has really deluged our body with a lot of toxins that it wasn't designed to deal with. It shouldn't all be passing in there, and 70 to 80% of the immune system's in the gut to deal with it right there in that encased environment. You've only got 20 to 30% outside, and now all of a sudden all this stuff is flowing through, and it's overwhelming.
Yeah, not only for me, it really started with several series of antibiotics that were given to me in, over a couple year period of time. Oh, here's this for this, and here's this for that. And I just thought, oh, okay, well, I guess I better take these.
I know. You don't know.
It really, really started with that. And so if you can help it, don't take a bunch of antibiotics, ladies.
Sure.
Let me say hello to a couple people. Janine is one of my fabulous clients who's lost over, I think, like 60 or 70 pounds. Janine's awesome.
Yeah.
And Renee says, me too. And so does Debbie Parsons. She says, me too, with all the stuff going on. And Debbie slowly rebounds after a busy day. Yeah. So yeah, we totally understand all of that stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
So, those adrenal glands are very strong. So I've had people who were bedridden, still didn't have adrenal disease, but severe, very severe, and just really having trouble getting out of bed. And if they can rebound, pretty much anyone can. These are tough. Those adrenal glands don't give up easily, and with the right support, they will normalize.
I love that because there was a time when I literally went to bed at 4 p.m. every day, and my little boy would come home from school and I'd say, crawl in bed with me. Let's do your homework together. And I really had to rest. I couldn't. Yeah, it was not a good time in my life, but we're past that now. So tell us, okay, so, I have a lot of ladies out there, and there's going to be a lot of ladies, whether you watch this live or in the replay. If you're watching this live, would you give me a hashtag live? And then later on, if you're watching this in the replay, give us the hashtag replay so we know. And always, always post your questions, because even if we're in the replay, we will come back and answer them. And I'll let Dr. Vikki know any questions that you have. Let's talk about hormone health. Big thing is ladies' hormones. How do the adrenal glands really affect our hormonal health?
Yeah, it's always big, but the role is more important as we approach our 40s and 50s and the whole perimenopause starts kicking in. So our bodies are designed to function optimally our entire lives. Healthy to 100 is my motto. And as those ovaries slow down, which they inevitably should, we're done having babies, the adrenal glands are supposed to pick up the slack the rest of our lives to make not fertile hormones, but healthy hormones for our heart and our brain and our bones, and to keep us strong, right? Mentally and physically. So what happens is often I was 17 and my adrenal glands were exhausted. What would have happened if I hadn't corrected that? So a lot of times when women start and we realize their adrenal glands are malfunctioning, especially if they're in their late 30s, early 40s, and like, now's the time, because otherwise you can have a very miserable menopause where you're not sleeping and you've got hot flashes and mentally things start malfunctioning. You lose your concentration and your memory, and you're irritable and depressed and anxious. And it's terrible what can happen. And it's supposed to be this just effortless transition of the baton passing gracefully from the ovaries to the adrenal glands. But the poor adrenal glands are saying, I'm exhausted. There's no way I can take on another job. And then the baton falls to the ground, right? So, but again, normalizing adrenal function is not hard. And then we can also talk about bioidentical hormones and the fact that there is a safe way to augment hormones, not the synthetics that kind of blew everything up about 10, 15 years ago, because they were using synthetics, not from humans, not the correct balance. And it's a very delicate balance. So you can do things from herbs to kind of see how far the body will assimilate from there, or you can use what's called bioidenticals, meaning exactly what your body has always made in the right type of administration. And so we use what's called the buccal mucosa. So if you take your tongue and touch up above your upper teeth, that's where it's placed. And in that position between the cheek and gum up there, it will go right into your bloodstream, which is exactly what hormones do. When they're produced, they get directed right into the bloodstream. They're secreted right into the bloodstream. They are not swallowed, or they have to go through the liver and the gut, and they're not sublingual, and they're not topical on the skin. So there really is a correct and less good way to administer the bioidenticals on top of them being bioidentical and not synthetic.
Right. I've been taking bioidenticals for about probably since 2010, so about 9 years.
Yeah.
Boy, what a difference that made immediately for me. When I started crying over something stupid, my boyfriend was like, yeah, no, I've been down this road before. Come on, let's go to the doctor.
That's good. Smart guy. That's great.
So let's talk for a minute about perimenopause, because I think that this is something that ladies don't even realize. They think that, you still got your period, so you think everything's cool. Let's talk about how to kind of figure that out and some of the signs of that.
Now that's a good one. The yardstick of I still have my period is not a sensitive yardstick at all. You can be having your period for several years regularly, not missing it, not really changing, yet you're noticing the irritability or the moodiness or the anxiousness, feeling depressed. Once again, the cognitive health, the brain not functioning as well as you would like, going to fat a little bit, less muscle, more fat. It can manifest in a number of different ways. But you're right. Our yardstick has been, well, let's look at my period. Everything must be fine. And the problem is that much like a lot of the traditional tests, they're not very sensitive. So all they'll do if you go to your regular gynecologist is take a blood test to see if your ovaries have completely given up. And once again, there's, quite a timeline between less before they're completely given up. So you're not seeing that subtlety, but there is just a simple blood test to do. It's not even an unusual request. Labs know how to do it. It's just the doctors don't know the timing of it to really measure it correctly. And so women are told, well, there's no way to test your hormones because they're variable. And it's true that they're variable, but there is a right time of the month when you're menstruating to analyze them and then knowing what that means. And there's also a physiological normal, meaning functional level, versus what the average woman your age is. And you and I've talked a little bit about that before, but these are lab tests. The quote unquote normals are coming from an average of humans that are not healthy. So it's a very skewed normal. It should really be called what it is, which is an average. Normal is something very different.
I was so, actually, I didn't know that until you were talking about it at our retreat. And so for all of you that are watching, basically when you go get a blood test done, or like your thyroid is tested, they're actually averaging you against all the people that don't feel good. Is that correct?
Well, what they're taking a group that sort of doesn't have known thyroid disease and calling that normal, which is,
Right. Which we know is not
far afield from that. Yeah, because they're just looking for disease again. So it really, that's what I tell patients. It just should be called what it is, which is you're not diseased. Okay, great. That's good news, but that doesn't mean I'm optimal, So what are the optimal ranges? And so that's what we look at with the hormones. And so if you're 50 years old and you get your blood drawn, if you can get somebody to do it, they'll say, no, you're fine for your age. I don't want to be fine for the 50-year-old woman.
I want to be 35 on my hormone spectrum.
Well, that's about the physiological. We're not trying to make you in your 20s, but actually those mid-30s are a nice level to go for. You're not going to be menstruating. It's not like that. But from a physiological level, yeah, exactly.
I felt like when I started, it took me about 6 months to a year to actually, we had to continue testing me. I think we did it quarterly as far as the bioidentical hormones to kind of get the right
level. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I really felt like I did around 38 years old again.
Yeah.
And it was, and you know what? I still feel like that, which is really incredible. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about how the adrenals affect menopause and kind of some things that ladies can be looking out for and what they should be doing.
Yeah, definitely. I think they affect us. We've got from the brain perspective, also things, libido can really suffer, vaginal dryness. In menopause, the gaining weight. So, there's the adrenals that's our topic today, and then there's why those adrenal glands are not the way they should be. So a lot of times we can be we want the pill. So maybe we don't want the drug pill, which is great, but it's like, okay, so what supplement should I take for my adrenal glands? And there's nothing wrong with that, except it's not root cause enough. It's a little too superficial. So we want to find out why those adrenal glands are taxed. Why are they overworked? And the food to fuel is a big one. either food sensitivities, or we talked a little bit about the leaky gut, what's called the microbiome, which is all the healthy bacteria that should be in your gut, or they have a nice balance. So food gut is a very, very big one that we need to look at. And then we need to look at those sex hormones, because as soon as those drop, which inevitably happens with menopause, it's going to put that extra burden. So again, when you have the diet really good and clean, and you've got your liver functioning optimally and your immune system functioning optimally, that will give them a big boost. But don't feel bad about maybe needing some extra help like you did, I've done. I mean, with my health history, I knew there was no way these little adrenal glands were going to get me through once menopause hit. They had never been very robust, and they certainly weren't getting better with age, so I did everything I could for them. And then I do use the bioidentical hormones, and working with the compounding pharmacy that can tweak, and you clearly did that, because these subtle little tweaks versus, well, this is the size of the pill and that's all you can take, that's not the way it should be. And it should be very reputable. Yeah.
This is not one size fits all.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's the same way with all of this. Your sister can have great looking adrenal glands and you don't. And definitely, that there's lots of different things. So I want to just kind of go over a couple of different things. Dee says, I had no idea about the average normal. This is actually a little disturbing. Yeah.
It is disturbing. It truly is.
And that's really why you need to be really working with a functional and integrated practitioner, because they're going to understand things on a much different level. Debbie says, is there that much hormones in meat, and do we need to buy organic? And yes, there is. And do you want to talk on that for just a little second?
Yeah, there's oh my gosh, there's quotes of like 1 inch of chicken has more pesticides in it than, like 7 pounds of, or 10 pounds of vegetables. It's really skewed in this country, and we have to work very, very hard. It's unfortunate that we have to work so hard to watch what we eat. But as women, I would really abandon dairy products. I'm really not a fan of mammal's milk is for her offspring, and that's truly the way it is, other than extreme circumstances. In the old days, it just started, mom didn't make it, and you had this baby, and Bessie was out in the field and she had some milk, and that's how it started. But human milk versus cow's milk, it's a very, very different thing, not to mention then how we're treating our animals, and the cows are constantly pregnant. You've got all these hormones, and they're known to be carcinogenic. There's something called IGF. It's insulin-like, so it's like insulin growth factor, and it's very, very high in dairy products and certain meats as well. And it's linked to cancer, and it's very inflammatory. And so I would really stay away from it. I'm very strongly plant-based. I really like to push the strong plant-based with my patients, and some healthy fish, and not a lot in the way of meat. It's very occasional. If you look at some of the healthiest, longest lived cultures on the planet, where they have a lot of centenarians, meat is a condiment, for special occasions. It's not something that's eaten regularly. So I think we can definitely look toward that as a guide, and it's held up well research-wise.
Yeah, for sure. And if you haven't read about the blue zones, definitely read about the blue zones. I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, so
yeah, that's great.
They're definitely one of the blue zones. But I have to say that my father died around 84 years of age of Parkinson's, and he was a guy that never drank a drop. He was vegetarian his whole life, and he got on that whole thing of not eating eggs and not having cholesterol and vegetable oils and stuff. So the bottom line is, eat whole foods, and work with a practitioner. Dr. Vikki, wow, we could go on, you and I, for sure. But we're at our 45 minutes coming up here. And I do want to say hello to one more person. Melissa is joining us after soccer. Melissa is a pharmacist up in Medicine Hat, Canada. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so if you guys have questions for Dr. Vikki, put them in the comments section. We will go back. I will also put I know there's a link to her Facebook page, but I'll go back and give you a link to her website. And please, if you're in the area, tell us kind of how if somebody feels like my adrenals are all messy, how do you treat them?
Good question. First of all, I'm a big fan of initial consultations at no charge, because this is a unique kind of medicine that we practice, and I like people to be able to come in and really do a very good history, get a very in-depth history, and figure out, does this make sense for me or not, without having to pay any money up front. So it's kind of a safe way to just tell me about you or one of the other doctors, and then we'll let you know how we would approach working with you. And we are a destination clinic, so we see people from all over the country regularly, and they'll fly in for a few days, and so we can do that as well, and that's very, very effective. Our programs are natural, so we're more known for getting people off drugs than ever putting them on drugs, unless something is screaming, you know, blood sugar out of control or blood pressure out of control, and but then it would be temporary while we got to the real root cause of the problem. So with adrenal glands that are malfunctioning, of course, it's the big question of why. You know, why did you get there versus maybe the next person that comes in with weakened adrenal glands? And that's where the great history comes in. That's where the functional medicine tests come in to see, what is it for you? You know, is it gut? Is it toxicity? You know, is it a lot of outward stress? Is it the fact that you had a lot of antibiotics as a kid? You know, we figure it out and heal it at that level. And it's not a one size fits all at all. It's completely personalized medicine.
It really takes time. So being patient with the process. I know that if I had given up on my process, I'd still be sick today. And it took me like 9 months where I went in and I got weekly IVs and, you know, vitamin infusions. And I did a lot of different things. And I had to exercise when I just didn't feel like it, but I knew that I had to get all these toxins out of my system. And I read and read and read. So, you know, whatever you're feeling, there's a YouTube video about it, or a book.
That's true. Oh, and visit my YouTube channel. It's in my name.
There you go. All right. Good. I'll add that in there. And Melissa just wanted to comment, and Melissa is a huge, you know, I'm not a dairy person either, but Melissa is, you know, they're from farms up in the middle of Alberta, and they got good stuff. Yeah, very different than what you're going to get over here, even at Whole Foods. So definitely thank you for sharing, Melissa. So Dr. Vikki, thank you so very much. And I hope to regularly talk to Dr. Vikki about different subjects. If there is something that is bothering you, let us know what it is, and we'll make that next month's subject so that we can definitely, you know, talk about different things. So thank you very much, and appreciate it. And if you have any words of advice, give us your top 3 last minute tips.
Oh, top 3 tips. Hydrate. Too many Americans are dehydrated. Do move. Get a form of exercise that you like to do. As long as the next day you don't feel like a truck ran over you, then it's too much for you at this moment. And 9 servings of fruits and vegetables, heavy on the veggies each day. Yeah, those would be my top 3.
Okay, well, Dee has one more question. She says, can some autoimmune diseases be cured?
Yes,
really
we absolutely can. We've absolutely reversed Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is the autoimmune thyroid disease. We've had an MS patient get out of her wheelchair and go on to have children. So it's a spectrum with autoimmunes, all the way from cured, which is very possible, to feeling a lot better off medication. And also the big thing for us, over and above curing, if we can't get quite to that end of the spectrum, is getting to the reason why the immune system was so taxed. So taking the stress off it, so you're not going to develop other autoimmune diseases. So depending on how much damage has been done to that organ that's been being attacked, sometimes you can't bring it all the way out, but you can definitely stop it from getting worse, stabilize it, feel better, and not then worry about other autoimmune diseases developing, which is really key.
Yeah, definitely. I have reversed my Graves' disease, and remembering that just because someone says to throw some ashwagandha at it doesn't mean that that's really going to do it. So understanding that you really do need to work with a professional. I'm a true believer in that. Yeah. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much. It's been great. And I will talk to you soon, Dr. Vikki.
Yes, it was a pleasure, Renee. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody for listening. I hope it was helpful.